There is a hidden law that governs this universe, a law higher than any other law, a law higher than the law of karma, the law of vibration, the law of attraction, and any other principle or concept that you might have come across. This law can dissolve your past, rewrite your present, and make reality itself bend in your favor effortlessly. We've been told every action has a reaction, and if we want something, we need to work towards it, we need to earn it, or we need to think positive, or we need to change our beliefs. Now, of course, all of these are truths at their own level, but there is a higher truth that we will discover today that can literally change your life forever. There is a law which works beyond effort, beyond cause and effect, where life begins to flow through you instead of against you. And that is the law of grace. And once you understand grace, everything changes for you. Your reality, the people, opportunities, even time itself starts aligning with you in ways you cannot logically explain. And by the end of this video, I will help you understand this law and how to harness it so that you go to a place where miracles are no longer rare but natural. And I have seen the power of this law in my own life. Now, if you're watching this, and if you're a professional or an entrepreneur or even a spiritual seeker, you have a certain vision for your life, or you are looking to attain something or to get somewhere, whether it is your business success or your professional success or health and abundance, or whether it is your spiritual evolution, you are going in a direction to get to some place, whatever it is. So, in the terminology of ACS, in our community, we call this our ideal life. And this is different for different people. For someone, it can be purely financial freedom. For someone else, it can be spiritual evolution. Whatever it is, let's call it our ideal life. And there is an ancient verse in Bhagavad Gita which comes from the 18th chapter, and it is the 78th shloka. It goes like this: Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Danurdaraha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Druvanitir Matir Mama. And it means wherever there is Krishna, the infinite consciousness, the infinite intelligence, and wherever there is Arjuna, the one who has surrendered his will to that divine intelligence, to that infinite consciousness, and is striving towards a goal, towards a purpose, there will be success and prosperity and wealth and freedom and abundance and everything that he needs. Let's decode this particular verse from Gita, because this holds the key to whatever we will understand today. So the verse, like I mentioned, it begins in this way: Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishno, and then it says Yatra Partho Danurdaraha. Wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna. But the deeper meaning to this, according to me, is this: Krishna is always there. Krishna is non-local in nature. Krishna is not a person. Krishna represents God, or that infinite consciousness, which is in and through everything. The Chandogya Upanishad therefore says, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. God is in and through creation. It is everything. It is everyone. It is the essence of everything. So, that source is always there. It is as accessible to me or you as it was to Arjuna in that battlefield. Although Krishna was physically there with Arjuna in Kurukshetra, he is there here and now with each and every one of us. Only we should become like Arjuna and surrender our will to him so that we can experience him and so that we can connect with him. So, Krishna is always there. He is eternal, he is inevitable, he is infinite. But when we surrender to that grace and when we work towards a vision based on our swadharma, based on our purpose, towards a meaningful goal, then that infinite intelligence will support us, will hold our hands, and will take us to that destination that we are seeking. Whatever it is that you're seeking, that is your ideal life. And if you truly want it, The most powerful law or the most powerful principle that you can grasp is the law of grace, where you can harness that infinite intelligence of God for attaining your ideal life. And God wants that for you. Why would God not want your ideal life for you? It is you who are not ready, and it is who you are not willing to surrender. So, this law of grace is above every other law. You might have heard of the law of attraction, which is a very, very superficial principle which has been marketed in so many wrong ways in this world. People just focus on changing their thoughts and thinking in a positive way to attract some short term superficial goal. This might yield some results, but it is ultimately not of any value to us because it will not help us evolve spiritually, and it will not help us connect to our true self or God. Now, that is one law that you might be familiar with, that is law of attraction. Above that comes the law of karma, which is much more deeper. Law of karma simply doesn't talk about changing your thoughts or positive thinking, but it goes deeper. It explains to us you have lived for thousands of years in different forms, in different bodies, as an individual person, as a jiva. This is the concept of rebirth and reincarnation in Vedanta. Based on all the karma, based on all the actions that you have performed, you have generated certain memory, and that memory has given rise to your current swabhava or identity, which is the person who you are right now. Now, because of karma, the swabhava is created. Because of swabhava, your beliefs, thoughts, and emotions are created. And because of your beliefs, thoughts, and emotions, you create different results in this world. And that is how reality operates, is what law of karma tells us. So you can understand how the law of karma that Vedanta speaks of is much deeper and is much more subtle and sophisticated compared to the law of attraction. Of course, the law of karma is powerful, and whoever you are currently, whatever is holding you back currently, whether it's your health or career or whatever, understand that it is tied to your karma. It is your past actions of this life or your previous lives that is holding you back and that has made you the person that you are right now. But even the law of karma is limited because it is a law that operates in this dimension of Maya within the parameters of time, space, and causality. Beyond the boundaries of Maya, there lies an infinite power or the infinite intelligence that we call God. And if we access that, and if we understand how that intelligence works, that is when we will access the law of grace. This is a law which is above anything that you can imagine. It is the law which is above the law of karma, and of course it is something which is above the law of attraction. As per karma, you might have some difficulties today, you might have some issues today. Even that can be solved by working on yourself consciously and by surrendering to that infinite intelligence. In the ancient Puranas, we have seen so many stories. The story of Markandeya Rishi, who, as per his karma and as per the law of karma, he was supposed to die at a certain age as a very young boy. But because he surrendered his will to God, to that divine intelligence, to Shiva in his case, he is still living as a Chiranjeevi, as an eternal being, as per the Puranic stories. This tells us that even the law of karma can be broken free of if we harness the law of grace. But to understand what grace is, we need to go a little deeper. Each and every one of us are right now an individual being. We are one swabhava, or what at ACS we call an identity. Now, this swabhava is a result of past karma, as we understand. Your swabhava is nothing but who you are right now as a person. Whatever your nature is, whatever your beliefs are, your thoughts are, your emotions are, it all comes down to this, your identity. And this swabhava or identity is within Maya, within the boundaries of time, space, and causation. And all the laws that we have heard of, the law of vibration, the law of karma, the law of attraction, and so on, every law operates within the boundaries of Maya, within the limitations of Maya, within the limitations of time and space and causality. But only the law of grace operates by itself beyond the boundary of time, space, and causality, because God exists outside of the boundaries of Maya. Maya and this universe is simply an appearance in God. So God is not bound by his creation. God is free. God need not obey any laws. That infinite power can do anything. But how to access that is the question. Now, to access that, we need to understand certain things. First of all, we need to understand the difference between faith and belief. And next, we need to understand the individual will versus the divine will. First, let's understand the terminologies of what is belief versus what is faith. Belief is an assumption. You do not know something and you have made an opinion about it and you have come to a conclusion about it. That is a belief. We do not know so many things in this world, but sometimes we believe in those things for various reasons. But faith is very different. Faith is actual knowing. You know, when we actually know God and see God and experience God, that is when we are said to be in faith. Not when we just believe in a concept called God. Believing in a concept of God is very, very, very different from living God or knowing God and understanding God fully. And the difference between belief and faith itself is sufficient to change your life. If you can just go from belief to faith, everything can change in your life. Let's again understand how to make this happen. How to change our belief about God as a concept to a faith in God as a knowing, as a lived experience. And to do this, let's get back to the story of Kurukshetra again and what Arjuna did. In Kurukshetra war, initially Arjuna was very skeptical. He was confused, he was clueless, and he begged for the guidance of Lord Shri Krishna. He was completely hopeless and he surrenders himself to Krishna and seeks his guidance. Now, within the story of the Kurukshetra war in Mahabharata, initially Arjuna almost talks about giving up on the war, and he says to Shri Krishna, I don't want to fight this war. I will give up my claim to the throne. I will give up everything and maybe I will beg for food. That is still fine. Instead of fighting and killing my cousins and my own teacher and my uncle, I can simply live a life of simplicity by giving everything up. So that was his situation. But later, he intelligently asks for the guidance of God, of Sri Krishna, and he surrenders himself completely to the will of Krishna. Arjuna understands that ultimately he does not have the right perspective on what to do and what not to do. Only God can guide him. So he completely surrenders not just his chariot to God, but his entire life to God. He surrenders everything to God, and hence in the 18th chapter, this particular verse comes, which tells us wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is someone like Arjuna who surrenders completely to God, there lies success, freedom, fulfillment, and abundance. Each and every one of us have an individual will. This is our free will. Although it is an apparent free will, it still exists in the dimension of Maya. You are free to live your life as you wish. This is the freedom given to you by God, by that divine intelligence. Now, as long as you would want to hold on to that individual will, you are living your life based on the law of karma, because your individual will is tied to karma, and your entire life experience will be based on your karma, and you will experience a lot of confusion, ups and downs. There will be happiness, but there will be misery, there will be struggle, there will be some temporary fulfillment, and like this, samsara, the life goes on. But once you take a decision to surrender this individual will completely to this divine will, to the infinite consciousness, which from a deeper perspective is the essence of who you are, which is your own true self. when you surrender the individual will and understand yourself for who you are as that infinite intelligence, or if you surrender yourself and your will to God as that infinite power, that is when you will be able to access the law of grace. That is when your life can change forever. And how to practically make this happen? To practice it, we need to develop a connection with God. And although, as per Advaitha Vedanta, the infinite dimension is beyond form, it is the infinite consciousness and the intelligence, for most of us, it is difficult to establish a relationship with something that is beyond form. Because how can I establish a relationship or a connection with something that I cannot see or touch or even feel right now? That is where in Vedanta Upasana comes in. Upasana is worshipping God with form. There is Saguna Upasana, there is Nirguna Upasana. Based on what you can resonate with, you can choose a path. Saguna Upasana is worshipping or developing a connection with God with a form. Whereas Nirguna Upasana is worshipping or developing a connection with God which is beyond form, which is formless. Whatever suits you, you can choose. But you must choose one of these two options to harness the law of grace. And for most of us, Saguna Upasana is something that we can start with. Some years ago, I began worshipping Lord Narayana. My Adhvaitha, my individual form of God that I worship and I connect with is Narayana. And the particular deity is located in Tirupati. It is called Sri Lakshmi Venkateshwara Swami. In Hinduism, in Sanatana Dharma, there are infinite forms that you can connect with. For you, it can be Devi or Shiva or Ganapati or Krishna. It can be Jesus Christ if you are a Christian. That form is simply a representation of the infinite consciousness. Since we cannot directly connect to the infinite consciousness, which is beyond form, one particular form is an anchor for us to have that connection. That is all Upasana is. And just begin to develop this connection with God. Have an Ishtadevata, whether it is with form or without form, and sit with it every single day. If it is Nirguna Upasana, you can practice meditation and self-inquiry. If it is Saguna Upasana, sit in front of a photograph of that deity or that form, or a sculpture or a mural, and have a conversation with it. Offer something to it every single day. It can be flower or a piece of food or anything. It can be milk or water. Offer something to it, have a conversation with God. It can be as real as you want it to be. And even 5 minutes of this practice can be really, really powerful and it can change your life. So practice devotion and begin to surrender everything, your identity, your attachments to different things, your desires, your goals, your challenges, everything. Surrender that to God and let it dissolve there. And what remains will be your ideal life.